Well, the Browns in Philly holding their first of two joint practices here on Monday. And let's just start on the injury front, Mary Kay, because obviously we knew there was a good chance there were going to be some injuries. And today, Jack Conklin left. He's being checked for a concussion. Denzel Ward left with an illness. Myles Garrett left with a foot injury. Now, Myles gave you some encouraging words before he left practice, and he was barefoot and signing, so maybe not a lot to worry about. But again, some injuries to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I asked Myles on his way off, how you doing, Myles? And he said, silly stuff happens when you get old. But as you mentioned, he was smiling, he was laughing with the kids, he was barefoot, he was signing autographs, and he looked totally fine. He carried some of his own gear to the bus or to the locker room. And so I don't think that's going to be anything to worry about whatsoever. I don't know that any of these guys will come back out and practice again tomorrow on the second day of joint practices. Why would you do that when these guys have potential concussion, illness, foot injury? So it might be done for the Pro Bowlers.
Yeah, Ashley, I mean, that's the decision Kevin has to make, and we know Kevin and this organization. They don't really like to push these guys, especially in training camp, to get out there and practice when it could lead to more injury or them missing more time.
Yeah, I think especially with joint practices, managing those kind of things is really paramount, right? Because we know none of these guys are going to play in the game anyway because they expect the ones and twos to get most of the reps out here. But I think especially with Myles, when I hear foot injury, what I'm wondering, because we don't know what foot it is, we have to remember he had that big toe injury that he suffered during the Pro Bowl. So definitely I think something to keep an eye on if he has an injury in that area.
Now, we did get to actually watch some practice today, and we saw the offense go against the defense, Browns offense versus Eagles defense, and vice versa. Mary Kay, let's just start with kind of what stood out to you today.
Well, first of all, let me talk about two receivers real quick. I thought Anthony Schwartz made some nice plays. He caught a couple of deep passes, and he was on point today, and that's what he needs to be against these Philadelphia Eagles if he's going to make the football team. He's on the bubble right now. He needs a good couple of days here. So that was good for him. And then Amari had an uncharacteristic kind of day where I saw a couple go off of his hands. I think I saw one in 7-on-7s and then a couple in team drills, and that's just not Amari. And he talked about how he has to focus a little bit more, and for whatever reason, it just wasn't the kind of day that we see him have every single day in practice.
Yeah, Ashley, I think the key word there is uncharacteristic. I think if a guy is going to be out there dropping passes, you don't want it to be anybody, but you're okay with it being Amari because we kind of know when the first starts flying, as Mary Kay likes to say, Amari's going to show up.
Yeah, and Amari was a little hard on himself after practice, but I think some of those missed catches were a little bit fluky. One popped out of both of his forearms. One, it looked like bounced off his face mask maybe. So there was some of that at play too, but Amari Cooper, like I said, he's going to be hard on himself. He wants to make every single catch. I mean, he basically said, we're receivers. Making every single catch is what we're supposed to do.
So, Ashley, what did you see today?
Yeah, I spent most of the day also watching the offense. So besides the Amari drops, I think it was interesting to see them go out there without Elijah Moore on offense. I think Elijah's absence, you kind of realize how key he's already become to what we see from this offense and how he allows them to change things up and run those gadget plays, and he can go out of the backfield. So I definitely felt like he was missing, and Deshaun was going to Amari more because of that. So that was my big takeaway, I think.
Yeah, at one point when they were doing 2-minute or whatever it was at the end, it was David Bell, Demetric Felton, the playmakers outside of Amari Cooper that Deshaun Watson had weren't certainly the guys he's going to have out there when the games begin. Now, I watched the defense a little bit of Mary Kay before Myles Garrett left with that foot injury. He was having a field day against Jordan Mailata. We kind of got to see Jim Schwartz mix up this defensive line a lot. We heard from Shelby Harris after practice. Now, he's kind of working his way in, so we didn't see a ton of him, but just the versatility on this defense, it kind of started to show today.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, this Eagles defensive line is the prototype for what the Browns are trying to build, and they just keep stocking it and stocking it and stocking it. And we know that Jim Schwartz worked here. He coached this defensive line. They led the NFL with 70 sacks last year. So the Browns keep adding to it. They added Shelby Harris, but like you said, Myles kind of had his way a little bit, and he is someone that you usually don't leave one-on-one. You just don't. But in a practice like this that you do, if you play them in a game, you're going to chip him, you're going to double team him, you'll do whatever you have to do.
And of course, when you start doing that, Ashley, that's when Za'Darius gets opportunities. That's when Shelby gets opportunities. That's when even Jordan Elliott, who got in the backfield a couple times today, gets opportunities. There's just a lot of things this defense can do.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think that's why when you look back to 2022, we always said it's like Myles Garrett needed more help. No one was a threat up front besides Myles with those 16 sacks last year. So when you have more guys who can get to the quarterback, it's just going to open things up for everybody in theory if this system works the way they want it to.
Okay, full coverage of the joint practices from Philadelphia today. You can find it all at cleveland.com/Browns.